This episode is sponsored by the very awesome Petra Cope. Hello and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people, all of you creative people really, to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 95, Batching. Bruce Lee said that if you love life, don't waste time, for time is what life is made up of. And so today I'm going to quickly cover a concept and working practice that will allow you to get more done in less time. It'll be of no surprise to you, but batching is simply the act of grouping together tasks so that you do them all at once instead of switching between tasks that take you into different areas, different thought spaces or physically to different places as well. And a typical example of this from my life would be when I have to resize a whole load of photographs that I use. I used to do it using a macro program which I'd create. I'd have to work it out each time in an older version of Photoshop. But since Adobe decided, in their great wisdom, to rent their software rather than to sell it, I moved over to Affinity, a similar but different program, which I'm not totally au fait with yet. But the great thing about that program is that I can batch process with pretty much 2 clicks, and it does most of the work for me if I'm, say, just resizing 100 photographs that I've got. And another example of batching for me is when I'm working on video. I was shooting some behind the scenes stuff for Mercy Falls, and that was quite tricky, by the way, because I was also fight director. But when I got back with the footage, I'm just shooting random interesting things in the moments that I've got. I have to get all of that footage cut down. I have to cut out the stuff that's out of focus or that's useless or it's moving or I've forgotten to switch off or whatever, and I create a new timeline. I call it a selects timeline, where I select the best bits from each clip that I've got and I put them down in a timeline. That's another example of when I batch things. I wouldn't go and do 2 or 3 minutes of that and then stop and go and do something else. I sit down and I forced myself to using quite often the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes at a time, and I do sections of that video just put onto a select timeline. And perhaps a more direct example of batching would be when I do this podcast, and I like to do the podcast in batches. I'm working on 9 episodes at the moment. This is episode 4 of the run of them, and I sit down and I generally research and work up an episode and then record it, but because I'm doing these shorter episodes, I did 2 at the one time there, and as you may remember from the last episode, I actually messed up a little bit because I accidentally deleted a bit. But generally my focus is on doing episode, and I keep my headspace in that area and I get it done. I find it difficult to return to the podcast if I've went off and done something else, so I try to batch these episodes. And another thing I do in batches, which is even clearer, is when I market these things, I have a process of doing the upload to the media host and writing the show notes for that and getting perhaps the sponsor's details if there's a sponsor who wants their website advertised, for example, then I'll make sure that's in as well. Then I'll go on to the website and I'll take the information from the media site and I'll put it into the website and I'll try and do all the information on there, and then I'll move on to Buffer, which is where I put out the social media stuff, and I'll do them in batches as well. And that's kind of some examples of my batching, but I'm sure there's things you do yourself that are very similar. And batching is simply much more productive because it forces you to plan things out and it stops you from jumping back and forward between unconnected tasks. And that means that your mind can be more focused, unless the task can be very repetitive, of course, where you may have to tackle it in smaller batches, because if it's something that's too repetitive, you could find that you actually start to make mistakes because you're really not focusing on it. And batching might make sense if you struggle to concentrate on a single task, or if you need to eliminate distractions to make meaningful progress in something that you're doing, or your work environment is full of interruptions, or you repeat similar tasks on a regular basis. Batching them together and getting them done in one session would probably make good sense for you. But it might not be ideal if your work is very variable and your tasks are often very different from each other, because that's just a very difficult thing to batch. And it also might not be ideal if your work doesn't require deep focus or uninterrupted periods of work, or if you get back to a task quickly after interruptions and you're good at that sort of thing, or if you just enjoy switching between tasks to give variety to your working day. And a follow on to the basic concept is time batching. I refer to it generally as batching, but time batching is another thing that's associated with it, and that's where you set aside a specific amount of time to batch for. Like I was saying, I'll tend to do it in 25-minute kind of, I nearly said excrements there, but I meant increments. I didn't say it out loud. I shouldn't probably have said it, but it's done. It's in there now, and such is life. But 25-minute increments, and that's effective because it builds structure and boundaries around blocks of time, so that you can dive deep into specific tasks without interruptions that would break up your workflow. And there are typically two types of tasks that you can batch, and that's shallow tasks that require lower levels of productive energy. They're ideal for short work sprints, and also deep tasks which require higher levels of productive energy, minimal distractions, and high focus for longer periods of time. Productivity is never an accident. It's always the result of a commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. Paul J. Meyer, unquote. You can batch dealing with emails and other communications. You can batch working on images like I do for this show. I also batch in Canva, an online editing program for images, which I have talked about in earlier shows, but well worth you looking at if you've not used it. You can batch your editing. You can batch things like brainstorming, simple things like cleaning, really just about anything that you know how to do and that has a simple series of actions. But also, you should note that this system is less good if you're tired, or if you're dealing with very complex things, or if you're dealing with new tasks or problems and you're still learning how to do them. By batching and blocking off set periods of time for tasks, you can achieve a state of flow, which is a mental state where you work efficiently and make meaningful progress towards your goals. And I'll end it there for today. This has been the second test episode that I've put together in this shorter format, and I hope that you found it interesting. I hope you liked the last one as well. And taking on these smaller concepts and getting the point across quickly is my main aim here. If I can master and improve upon this format that I'm trying to make work, I will commit to producing another 50 episodes following on from episode 100, and I'll be releasing them one a week from now on. And as a call to action today, I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode. You can contact me via Twitter at FilmProProdPod, Facebook at FilmProProductivity, or directly via the contact page on FilmProProductivity.com. Please do let me know if you think it's working or not. And in the next episode, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to be talking about, because I started working on it. It was going to be anger, regret, and jealousy. But I've realised doing these shorter formats that I might be able to do something else with it. So you'll have to wait and see what happens, but that was generally the plan. But I'll end today with these words from Rick Warren, who said, "If you want your life to have impact, focus it. Stop dabbling. Stop trying to do it all. Do less. Prune away even good activities and do only that which matters most. Never confuse activity with productivity. You can always be busy without purpose, but what's the point?" Now take control of your own destiny. Keep on shooting, my friends, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success. The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Himitsu. Very grateful to him for allowing me to use it. And you can view the show notes for this episode on the official website, filmproproductivity.com. And you can also follow my personal account on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director if that's of interest to you. But for now, please support the show if you can by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review. Leave it on the Facebook account if you like. That's at Film Pro Productivity, or on any one of the apps. Have a good day.